This is another Film Dimension interview. I'm speaking to Baz this evening, and we're going to find out about his work and the films he's made, films he's been in. Baz, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks a million for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem at all. No problem. Before we start talking, I'm looking at all of those. Are they DVDs behind you?
There's it's all porn. No, yeah, they're DVDs. I'm quite old school. If my wife had her way, they would not be there. But yeah, they pretty much span the entire walls of the room. So
that's awesome. That is that makes my collection up there very, very pitiful in comparison. How many do you think you got?
I actually don't know, but I estimate about 5,000.
Wow.
Yeah. I went a bit crazy there for a while, and I was so reluctant to give in to, because obviously all the streaming sites now and stuff like that. I still like the tangible, being able to hold the physical, But I definitely don't buy as much as I used to. But it is cool when there's like a really rare film that's not on any of those sites, and you can go out, So
yeah, absolutely. If it's got like director's commentary and behind the scenes and stuff, as well. No, I've still got a DVD player. I've got a very old Pioneer that I think from memory, I bought it. I think I bought it in '98 because Matrix had just come out in DVD when I got it. So that was like one of the first DVDs I got. That, and I think American History X was the other DVD I bought really soon after it. And it's still working, and I still watch DVDs. Yeah, I like DVDs.
I still have my videos in the attic.
Yeah.
Don't want to part with them. Yeah.
Again, I mean that's kind of, I say, coming back, or has come back in some degree. I mean, a lot of people that are into particularly 80s themed horror films now, when they're doing releases, they will, let's say with a perk or something, they'll do like a VHS release with it, or they like the artwork for that. You can just buy the case just for the artwork and stuff.
It's so cool. It just brings you back like such nostalgia when you see the video, and you remember going to the the video shop on a Friday night and renting that. It was such a big deal, and not being able to rent the one you wanted because it was popular that week and stuff, So it brings back a lot of good memories.
Yeah, absolutely. So filmmaking, being a filmmaker, being a director, being an actor, I mean, how did you start on this process?
Yeah, well, I suppose, I mean, I'm definitely predominantly an actor first. Started years and years ago when I was a kid in the theater, side of summer camps and stuff like that. And then kind of went away from it, got a big time into martial arts and music, like I've been a drummer all my life. And then kind of came back to the acting then when I was about 17, 18, like being in people's music videos, and started on that kind of side of things. And I actually got roped into like a lot of like alternative modeling because of the tattoo kind of look and stuff like that. And I do mean roped into it because like I'm notoriously shy in my real life, and I had no interest in doing it, but I just kept getting asked, and I was like a rabbit in the headlights starting off, and then I just got more confident, and eventually through that kind of got signed to agencies, and always had the acting bug, but just never really like had the confidence to really go for it. And then when I was about 20, 21, through doing the extras and commercials and stuff like that, I started then doing small roles, and it's been going ever since. So definitely predominantly an actor first, and been plugging away at that for the last, 16, 17 years. And then the writing and the directing side came from I wrote a book, which was on my bucket list. Never thought I'd finish a book, put it out there, did well. And then I went back to acting college in Bow Street. Even though I've been, acting for a while, I just made the decision that in Ireland here, that's the hub. Anyone you meet on set comes from Bow Street. It's produced some amazing actors, and it kind of felt like it was taking a bit of a step backwards, but I made the decision to go back, and it was one of the best things I ever did. not alone for the connections, but just, you know, what I learned in there. And in there, they encourage you to write your own scene work and your own stuff.
Yeah.
So I just started doing that and like performing it myself, the scenes. And then my classmates started asking me to write them scenes. And then it was kind of encouraged to, you know, start writing your own work, and don't always be sitting around for the you know, the castings to come along.
Yeah.
So it was something that kind of organically happened. I was like, right, fuck it, I'll just, you know, I'll write it, I'll give it a go. And it was just kind of learn by numbers. So that was my first one then, was Reflection. And it ended up doing really well. And then I went on from then, you know, with the writing and directing side.
I think it's really important, isn't it? Particularly in the indie world, that if you're an indie actor, it stands to reason that you're not going to be getting calls 7 days a week. You know, even if you sign up for an agency, even if you've got like a really distinctive look, you have to not only be proactive in terms of meeting people and sort of putting yourself forward, but it makes sense of, well, maybe I should write something for me to star in, you know what I mean? Be it a short 3-minute film or whatever. So it's kind of like, if you want to be an actor, an actress, and you're not writing your own scripts, your own parts, or trying to put some together, then it's kind of like you're missing out on, like, say, 50% of doing what you're doing, you know, creating.
Yeah. And I mean, with Reflection, it was basically like, I mean, with my image, obviously I get typecast, you know, I'm the drug dealer, the bad guy, and that's cool. They're fun. I love playing them. No complaints. I love it. But at the same time, I'm still a human being. And as an actor, you still have a lot more emotions to portray that you want to portray and stuff. So Reflection is like, it's about male suicide. I play a really, really vulnerable character in it. And I'm in the woods, I'm going to commit suicide, and a little girl comes along who's lost in the woods, and she basically saves me because I go to try and, you know, find her parents through the woods, and there's loads of twists and turns. But it was the juxtaposition between my image and this little cute innocent girl. And when casting directors and people in the film when they saw it, they actually were like, we never would have pictured you in this position. And sometimes you have to go and show them, you know. So for my artistic expression myself, you know, I wanted to do it, but I also wanted to prove to them that just because I look like this, it doesn't mean that I can't portray emotions in a different
I mean,
that
sounds amazing. I'd love to watch it, and maybe add it on the Film Dimension if it's, you know, out there and available to do so. And we can definitely talk about that. How did you approach making that? What was your sort of budget? What was your sort of time that you had set aside to do it? Was it like something that you just did in your spare time? Was it like, right, we've got this amount of time booked up? Did you go find people you knew to help you?
Yeah, so I mean, like, I suppose that was my first, like, you know, proper short. I had made music videos before that, and I'd done like a viral video where I covered all my tattoos and makeup, and it's like a 5-minute little short film, and that went viral. It went viral 200 million. It went crazy. But but like the short film, that was like my first, you know, proper short film. So myself and my wife, we developed our production company, Sherlock Productions, and like she has a 5-year fine art degree, so she did all the media side and editing, and so she was amazing as regards, you know, storyboarding it and the prep, and she did costume design. And so everyone on that set had multiple roles, you know. It was basically a no budget. I mean, it was my own money. It cost us about $3,000 all in. And it was 3 days shooting. So like one of the locations, I actually was able to use my acting college. They have like a basement kind of to look like an apartment. So that was one of the days. And then the 2 other days was all in a forest. So out on location. And the shooting in the forest, and it was in the middle of winter, it was challenging to say the least. And the little girl who's in it, she's amazing, like, but she's only 6, you know, and trying to keep her, you know, happy and interested and all that kind of stuff. And then we had my wife's car broke down on the way back on the Saturday night. My van, which we were using as it was a camper van, we were using that as the base, and that broke down at 5 a.m. on the Sunday going to the forest.
Bloody hell, right.
You know, it was just one of those. And then we got there, there was a massive storm. We didn't know whether we'd be able to shoot. And so there was loads of logistical challenges, but it was just basically learn by numbers, get it done. And definitely the storyboarding is what saved us as regards getting, you know, what we needed and keep us in order. So that was definitely a big learning lesson.
So yeah, basically the lesson there is, yeah, like your foundation, like the planning, that, you know, the better planning you have is when everything else falls apart, you can at least follow the plan, you know.
Yeah,
that makes sense. What was your experience of, after you've made that, taking it to market, if you like, getting people to see it? Did you go down the festival route? And
so,
what was your following project?
Festival route. So Film Freeway, got it on there. I mean, like any filmmaker, you know, you learn from your mistakes, and if you're happy with your first film, you should give up, you know, straight away. I learned a lot about, how do I say it diplomatically, people claiming their skills were higher than what they were capable of, and relinquishing control on the edit when you're not working with someone who's collaborative, you know. So there was all these lessons to it, but eventually, you know, got it to a place that it was, you know, as good as it was going to get. And there's a million things I'd love to change about it. And this isn't being egotistical, but I mean, the story and the root of it and everything that happens in it, I love. Just technically, there's a million things that's wrong with it, you know. But still, put it out there and hit up as many festivals as I possibly could. Definitely went for too many because, again, it was just learning, you know, who do you go for, what do you go for, what type of festivals. Now, I did some research and tried to, because it is in the kind of thriller genre, so pick those sort of festivals, but put it out there. And it actually ended up doing like really, like, I think we won 17 awards overall, and like one of them was Best Director, Albert Pyun, the Inspiration Awards, and then we won Best European Short. And so for the first one, like it did well, and then there was loads of rejection, don't get me wrong. Like there was fucking weeks where you were like, oh, what a waste of money, what a waste of time, because it is expensive, you know. Put it in, and then if your ego isn't hurt, then you know you're doing something wrong. And but yeah, it ended up doing really well. And what it did was it just opened up so many doors as regards acting roles for myself, and collaborating with people who ran film festivals, who a lot of the time are directors, would hit you up for their projects when you saw you. So yeah, it did okay for the first one.
No, it sounds like it did amazing. Again, what would you say for someone maybe who might listen to this somewhere down the line, that they've got a film in their head, they've been writing a script for a long time, but they've not made one yet? What have you learned from approaching festivals with submitting this and other projects, that, you know, what don't they tell you? What do people get wrong in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, like, you know, when I look back at reflection and some of the bigger festivals that I was trying to get it in, and you see, first of all, the standard and the quality of the films that do get into these bigger festivals. But what a lot of people don't understand, and I didn't understand, is most of the bigger festivals, you are wasting your money a lot of the time, because you need a production company that's already established and that has a connection with the film festival and recognized to put your film in. If you're a filmmaker yourself and you're just throwing your film in, 9 times out of 10, it's just not going to work that way. I didn't really understand that. It's kind of an unwritten rule, you know. So, and the bigger ones are more expensive, you know. So that was kind of a lesson learned the hard way. And then, yeah, I suppose just do as much research as you can as to what kind of films, you know, the festival, and if your film fits that genre of what they kind of like. And I mean, the more obscure your film is, the better chance you have at the, specialized kind of film festivals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that'd be my main thing, would be if you're trying to put your film in and it's your first one and you don't have like a big production or a big budget behind you, you're up against almost impossible tasks. I'm sure it's possible, but it'd be extremely rare these days that they'd accept you into it.
It's quite frustrating, isn't it? Because from the indie world, which is supposed to be, the smaller films, the independent films, the ones that aren't industry people in the hierarchy and all that sort of stuff, it's as you just said, it's really, really difficult. And it's also a lot of the festivals. I mean, there's a lot of festivals out there, obviously some better than others, but it's almost like you have to be very, very pigeonholed, don't you? It's like, oh, are you a horror film? Are you a themed horror film? Are you a psychological thriller? And it's like, well, if your film happens to be across 2 or 3 categories, then it's like, well, we don't know where to put you. Therefore, it's difficult for us to accept you. And it's like, well, it's a film. It's either a good film or a bad film. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah. There's so much criteria, and another thing as well was the running time. Festivals fucking hate any short films over 10 minutes, and that number keeps changing. But like Reflection was 15 minutes, and then I did another edit that brought it down to 12 minutes, just to make sure we were kind of in that bracket. My next short film, Merrow, is only 6 minutes or 6.5 minutes. And it was with that idea that for short films, because they don't want you taking up too much of the timetable, they would much rather it's under the 10-minute mark. So that's what I'd say to filmmakers as well, as hard as it may be to slash and edit your film down to keep the film festivals happy. It's kind of the compromise whether you want them to get in or you don't, because if they see something over 10 minutes, it better be damn good for them to give up that amount of time for you.
Sure, because they want more films, because more people are paying to be on the card and everything else. And it's perhaps naive and it's a shame, but at the end of the day, it is a business. They're running it as a business, but it also from the filmmaker's point of view, you're doing this out of the love of the thing that you're doing, hopefully, because you want to build a career and all that sort of stuff. But it's like, when you're putting your own money in it, and it's like, say, £3,000 and your own time, you're trying to tell the best story you possibly can, and then someone else is just going, well, how much money is this going to make us, and can we fit 3 films in the space of 1 film? It's difficult, isn't it? And again, I think it doesn't give filmmakers encouragement or inspiration to do crazier thing. And I think it's part of the problem of why you get a lot of the same sort of films, coming out, because again, it's like, are you making the best film you could possibly make, the best story, or are you trying to make something that will go really well in a festival?
The film festival, I suppose that's the business side of it, and as artists, we're always very reluctant to go into the business side of it, and we want to create what we want to create. But I mean, that's all well and good. You can do that, but nobody's going to see your film, unfortunately.
That's even the downside, isn't it? Yeah,
it's really good. And then I suppose the other thing with the film festivals is it's not like it used to be. Whereas you get into film festival and there's a good chance that you might get picked up by a production company or like distribution, or they want to talk to you about your next film and stuff like that. I mean, there's, as you said, there's so many festivals now. And then the ones that are important, like I said, are nearly impossible to get into unless you're of a certain caliber or, you're in that circle. Because I know a few filmmakers and they have their posters filled with laurels, but they're basically pay and you'll get into the festival ones, and they're not screened even. You just get a certificate, they're not even put up anywhere. And like anybody that's knowledgeable in the film world will look at those and be like, yeah, you've 30 laurels on your poster, but none of them mean anything, So
especially with COVID now, and the last
they're popping up everywhere.
And the last couple of years of not actually having physical festivals, same sort of thing. It's great if you've got 200 films on your website that's up for like a month or something, but one, is anyone watching it? And the idea of it being seen, and as I said, it's that was very much the model that was sold to me several years back when I got involved with trying to make my first short film. Was basically, this is the model. It's you make the film for as best as you can. We do a crowdfunder. We'll get someone else will pay for the money. We'll make it, put it in the festival, and someone will come up to us at the screening and go, "Wow, that's brilliant. Do you have any other ideas?" And we're like, yeah, here's a script we've got. And they're like, great, here's £1 million. See you at the Oscars. And it's just not true.
No, it's actually, I was watching an interview with Shane Meadows, and that's what happened to him. He put his first film into a film festival. Somebody in the film festival saw it, said, I have a script of a feature film. Will you direct it? I'll fund it. And he was saying, that just doesn't happen anymore. That's the way it used to be. And all these big executives would go to the film festivals, but now it's all online and it's accessible. They don't need to physically actually go to them. So it's just that much harder, I think. I think the film world in general, obviously it's always been really, really hard. But since even with COVID in the last 2 to 3 years, I think it's become even harder because there's so much saturation at the moment, and everybody with downtime with COVID, all the theater actors who would never have done screen, they all transferred over to screen because there was no theater. And the amount of content and trying to get out there, and I even noticed on Twitter with the amount of actors seems to have tripled, and everybody's fighting. It seems to be a really, really tough place at the moment. And I think that's why, if you're an actor or a creative, just if you can step back and make your own work, at least you're getting to do what you love, because it's one of the only jobs that we need permission to do what we love. Like I had a conversation, like my wife's an artist, and I had that conversation, and it was something along the lines of, anybody who's an actor, they want to be famous. And I was like, no, not necessarily. And I said, we need permission to do what we love. I was like, you're an artist, you can sit at home and do your painting, but you can put it out to the world. If you walk around your house acting, it's good to nobody. You're not getting to express it. So it's just kind of a roundabout way of thinking. And if you're an artist and you need to express yourself, then making your own work is the answer.
Absolutely. And again, it does ask the question of, you made your own work, the stuff that you want to make and want to see, but again, it's like, who gets to see it, and what mechanism. But it's not only do you need permission from someone else to be an actor to make a film, but you also need like anywhere from 10 to like 50 people also to be seen, that like say a painter or a sculptor or even a musician to some extent can write a song with an acoustic guitar on their own. But you're right, it's like you can't make a film on your own, or even on your own, it's still like 3 people. Do you know what I mean? You're doing everything yourself. And it is again, probably is the hardest art form there is, certainly the most expensive. From your experience of what you've done to getting here, both being an actor and appearing in stuff, and now making your own stuff, what's the biggest sort of game changer the last few years, do you think? As in, what has, if anything, has made it more accessible, but what also has made it harder? I mean, you already sort of touched upon how it's changed, but
well, it's
is
definitely,
there anything that's easier?
Yeah, like it's the best time ever to make your own content, because as much as some filmmakers might not like to hear it, you can literally shoot a movie on your iPhone. I mean, Steven Soderbergh came out of retirement to shoot that Unsane movie on his iPhone. So as regards equipment and what you can do, making your own films was like, well, even when I was growing up, it was Hollywood. It was unheard of. You don't just go out and make your own films, but now you can. So I think that progression, but that's also opened the floodgates, to everybody having a crack at it. So the content quality may not be, always on par, a lot of stuff, but what I'd say to any, you know, filmmaker or young filmmaker or actor is get a group of your friends together and just shoot something. It doesn't have to be good, but just get behind the camera, get in front of the camera and actually start making some content. And then you look back in a year and realize, you know, oh, well, this is what's wrong with this, and improve on it. So I definitely think that side of things has opened up a lot of doors. And even during the lockdown, myself and my wife made like 3 mini short films just because we had cabin fever, you know. And we did we have a chinchilla, which is like a giant squirrel mouse rodent, I don't know, and we did it's called Chinzilla, so it's a nod back to the like 1940s black and white. I'll send it on to you.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, we built a whole city and we green screened it, and you know, so
that's great.
So I think, the lockdown definitely led to a lot more creatives and content and stuff like that, putting stuff out. But I just think it's just become so saturated that it's hard to make your mark. And then like the next short film I did was Merrow, which is like based on Irish mythology and mermaids. I didn't cast myself in that one. I wasn't a mermaid, but it was just based on stories my granddad used to tell me when I was a kid, and I just loved the whole mythology of, you know, mermaids and stuff like that. So we made that, but again, from a business perspective, America was our main aim with that, because the whole American loving the Irish connection and
of course,
and all that kind of stuff, you know. So we hit America, and it worked, you know. It did well in a lot of places, but in America especially, it did really well.
Oh, brilliant. That's cool.
So yeah, that was the next one, and again, that was just ourselves financing it. You know, we didn't have funding, and but like all from reflection, and then we have like a comedy series, and as the production company, we do commercial work for businesses and stuff like that, which is what brings the money back into the production company. But like any creative or production company, we built up a really good team, you know, in our network, and we can get so much done for, I don't want to say for little money, but we don't need to be spending extortionate amounts of money to get what we need done. The big difference with Merrow and our comedy series and all that was for Merrow, my wife and myself took over the DP duties on that. Now, like I said, my wife like did fine art and all that, but by no means qualified DOP or anything. So literally, like, we bought the equipment, taught ourselves how to do it, and then my wife ended up winning 4 cinematography awards for it.
Wow!
So it's just,
I mean, clearly she's got an eye for it.
Yeah, she's got the creative, you know, sense of it. And then it was just from learning from our mistakes and not handing it over to somebody else. We were like, no, fuck it. Like, we'll do it the way we want to do it. We'll give it a crack. And again, that's something that you need to learn, is to rely on your team, you know. And since then, now I've met some amazing DOPs, and they are on board for our feature film and stuff like that. But that was just a massive learning curve for us to go and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was your options? What was your decision in terms of, you said when America was your target and it did quite well, in terms of, do you want to touch upon, you don't have to go into like too much detail if you don't want to sort of give away sort of personal stuff, but in terms of when you said it did quite well, what did that mean to you? Was it did well because it was well received, it win an award, or did it literally make a return did someone go, yep, I'll buy that and I'll distribute that? Like, what was the sort of process?
Yeah, so it was just basically getting into the festivals in America. Merrow, and I don't want to sound like an asshole again, but it did really well. Like, I think we ended up with 22 awards overall for Merrow.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was really cool. And like, I say the success rate of festivals probably doubled from reflection as to, you know, how many we entered to how many we got into. And like, we won an award in LA, which was it's like a media company, the National Investigator, it's called, but they're like a massive like media, and they did a big write-up on their website about it, and it also got Merrow shown in like versions of Comic-Con through their connections, because they sponsored the event. So that one in particular just kind of led to this big massive media blowout, and I had people contacting me of like, what's next? Are you making another mermaid film? Are you you know? And I'm not making another mermaid film, but it was just opening these doors, and the whole time it was building towards, which is now our feature film, which I can talk about in a minute. But it was like, that was the goal, you know, to open the doors, make the connections and that side of things. Nobody came along and said they were going to finance anything, or, you know, distribution or any of that kind of stuff. But I was just glad that so many people got to see it, and it did so well. I did really well, like in Ireland, and loads in England as well, and a few in Scotland and stuff like that. So we were just glad that it was getting seen across the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest hurdle, isn't it? And that's the main thing. And again, I suppose it's almost, we've touched on, you know, the idea that it's easier to make content now with, you know, people have made some good films with their iPhone, and lots of people have tried not so good. But how important is the concept and the idea of a film, and ultimately what translates to, say, the actual script? Because I along with many people, I'm sure, are constantly having this conversation where it's like, you hear about a big budget Hollywood film and you're like, really? Like, that's the idea? Or a constant remake or the rehashing or the rebranding of other things? And it's like, there just doesn't seem to be 100 original films coming out every year, certainly from Hollywood. It's like, is there something missing from just original good story-led films? Even in the indie world, is it even more important now to have an original idea and a good idea?
I think the original ideas in the indie world are still there, and they're still prevalent, but nobody gets to fucking see them.
Yeah,
that's the problem. And Hollywood paints by numbers. They are, especially now, they're playing the safety net, and they have a criteria of, you know, we want 4 explosions, we want, like, and they're ticking the boxes as they go. But like, and I mean, you and I have both sat there and watched these Hollywood movies, and you're like, the scripts are just so diabolical. You're like, was there a script supervisor? Was there anybody caring about what these people were saying? Or, you know, and it just seems they're playing this safety net, and they want what they want, and there's no compromise, and there's no room for an original voice. So when an original voice sneaks through, that's why they always do so well, because they're just, you know, so well crafted and so well written. And just off the top of my head, for example, Todd Phillips going from being a comedy writer to going, you know, putting out Joker, and it was, you know, an absolute smash. And everyone, I remember reading, going, oh, this comedy writer, what's he doing writing a Joker film? This is going to be terrible. You know, people writing him off before. And so it's, and then, like I said, in the indie world, I think there's still loads of original voices. Some of them are a little bit coerced, but I just noticed in the last while of like, this is what you should be writing about. This is what's popular at the moment. And if you start kind of negating yourself to those kind of criteria, you're not really going to be expressing yourself too much.
Yeah, but I think if you go down that path too much, it becomes transparent, doesn't it? It becomes, you're jumping on a bandwagon. You're doing that because it was trending 12 months earlier, or whatever it was, you know.
And then you end up with the same film over and over again, like you said, and it just becomes like, I had Merrow in so many festivals over the last like year and a half. I swear to you, I have watched the same film over 50 times. It's like, oh, here's another one about this, and it's just the same thing, you know. And I mean, the COVID thing, many COVID films have come out already, you know, where people are just writing about the COVID and, you know, the infection and stuff like that, because it's just pigeonholed. So you are going to get that, I suppose.
Yeah, which again, perhaps it's always been the way. Maybe in the 1930s there was just loads and loads of gangster films, but there's only like 3 or 4 that are remembered now. So so I'm sure there's always been that to some extent. What's your opinion on just the general, again, the last, say, 2 years kind of coexisting with COVID, but it was there before, the kind of being seen to be aware of things like diversity in Hollywood and casting and having a larger spectrum of people now being leads, be it women or people of color, whatever it is. Do you see that as a positive or a negative? Is it doing what it should be doing? Is it causing other problems? Just from your observation of other filmmakers and
yeah, I mean, it's obviously and clearly a positive, and it's something that definitely needed to be addressed 100%. And it's, creating that equal opportunities. I do think it needs to find a balance. It's kind of it hasn't really settled, and I just find that amongst cast and directors, and because it's like a new thing, I think it's good. It's just that adjustment period, where I think they're just still kind of finding their feet on it a little bit, but it's heading in a positive direction and opening up, opportunities for people that would never have had those, opportunities, which can only be a positive thing. And weeding out a lot of the predators that is notorious in the film world, and that's indie and Hollywood, and and it's like finally the message is getting through that you can't get away with that shit. You never should have been able to get away with that shit. Yeah. So it's definitely a positive thing for the film industry.
Sure, and yeah, you're right. It's finding the balance, because it's being shook up.
Yeah,
some might say not enough, but
and it's a double-edged sword, because like, I mean, you shouldn't need to find the balance, and it should be, what we are heading towards, it should be that already, but it's easier just saying that than it is to find your feet and like let it settle. So I honestly think it's going to take about 4 or 5 years before it really knows where it is. That makes sense.
But like you were saying at the start, in terms of casting directors, when watched your film, the idea of, because you've got facial tattoos, and they're like, oh, well, we would never have cast you in this role, and until they've seen it, and it's like, oh, it does work. It's like, you could kind of look at it and go, well, come on, that's not that much of a stretch. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not that of a radical
definitely,
thing,
because casting directors are they're a visual people, like I find even if the description says the character has a beard and you go into the audition and you don't have a beard, they can't picture you with a beard. He's like, no, he doesn't have a beard. It's that straightforward. And I do speak about being stereotyped and all that kind of stuff. It in no way compares to the racism and the sexism and stuff like that, because my image is self-inflicted, where theirs is not. So I mean, I do find it really hard, and both my agents will say the same thing, that casting directors and stuff, they find it very, very hard to get past my headshot, because they'll look at my headshot and be like, oh, the tattoos are cool, or I don't like the tattoos and that, but they don't give you the chance to get into the room. And I've found over the years of auditioning and stuff, it's when I get into the room, or I get talking to a director, and there's always the same reaction. It's like, oh, I thought you were going to be, they have this predetermined decision already in their head from the image. So, but I find it very hard to even get to that conversation phase, to get past it. And then, to open up roles, and like, my mates always laugh like, oh, you're never going to be in a rom-com. I'm like, well, why not? It's like, I was in a rom-com a few years ago. I got into one, and that audition actually was one of the strangest of my life. I was all prepared, had the scenes, had the sides. There was a director, and there was 4 other casting directors and producers and stuff there, and it was all set to go. And the director just started talking to me about the tattoos first of all, and I was like, grand. And 10 minutes went by, and we were still talking about tattoos and stuff, and I was still trying to make sure I still had the lines ready to go.
Yeah.
And the casting room was full of people. 45 minutes I was in there talking to her about life, about music, about everything. And she was like, oh, it's lovely to meet you, thanks very much for coming in. So I walked out, and everyone in the casting room was looking at me going, what the hell was going on in there? Rang my agent and said that was a complete waste of time. I didn't even get to do the audition. She was like, that's horrible, sorry, but like, at least you went in and you made the effort. Next morning, got the part.
So like, what was it her talking to you as in like, right, you're the right person, literally, forget about the way you look, you're the right character, even though you didn't do the lines and everything else, but do you think think that was her actually interviewing you in a different way?
In different way, without actually getting to do the lines. But just because I didn't get to do like that, I was like, what the fuck? But I got the part anyway, So that's what I mean. It's just kind of these interactions that you have with people, and when they realize, you can hold a conversation, or they might see you in a slightly different light. So I've been banging on the doors for years and years about it, and I don't mind playing the other roles and the criminals and that, but it is always nice to just to get a chance to show them something that's a little bit different. Now, with the likes of Netflix and Amazon, again, on the diversity side of things, it is changing a lot, where there's a lot more opportunities for people who may not have looked like they wanted to look now, especially with the the DC world and the Marvel world and all that kind of stuff. You're seeing all sorts on screen, which is again a positive step.
Again, it's such a bizarre thing if you think about it, because the whole concept of being an actor, a performer, is you, depending, what your range is, unless you are a 2-dimensional person who plays the same thing over and over again, but it's like you should be able to convey lots of different things. So it's like either, if the character was, say, a tattoo artist who the story is them falling in love, then you could say, oh, he's great. But if it was, say, Hugh Grant in cast, that they would have to like give him makeup to look like he's got facial tattoos, or the other way around. It's like if you get the part, it was like, well, there's makeup, there's different ways of wearing sort of outfits, clothes and stuff that you didn't see loads of tattoos. It's like there's ways around it other than just going, I can't picture it. It seems such a small
that's
thing.
Very true. I had a conversation with one of my agents, and it was like, because I did the video where I had all my tattoos covered and stuff, and I have like photos from it, and she was suggesting that possibly we put that up as my headshot. And I was like, I don't want to do that, because I don't want to, I'll do the reverse of that. I'll cover the tattoos for a role. I don't want to get the role because they think that I don't have tattoos, It's an option definitely to show them that it is possible, but I don't want to put that up as my headshot and send that to cast, and then I show up covered in tattoos. Like, how do you explain that one? You know? So
exactly.
And that's kind of trying to hide who you are, and but again, it comes down to these predetermined ideas that somebody has. Like, I had 2 auditions for 3 auditions last year for playing a drummer in a band, and I play in 4 bands. I've been a drummer all my life. And one of the notes I got back through my agent was, he doesn't look like a drummer in a band. And it's like, but I fucking am a drummer in a band,
I mean,
It's like,
what do they think drummers in bands look like?
Well, that's the thing. And actually, only recently on Spotlight, this commercial ad came up, and it was like, we're looking for a metal drummer, must be able to drum metal and contemporary. We must believe he's a metal drummer. And I was like, okay, cool. And I was looking at the money. I was like, yeah, this definitely, I'm going to, nudge my agent about this one. This is all good. And then in block capitals down the bottom was like, must not be covered head to toe in tattoos or have any piercings. And it's like, you think about that board meeting of what does a metal drummer look like? What metal drummer have you seen that isn't covered in tattoos?
Yeah, unless it's a vintage piece and it's literally, I don't know, like the early days of Black Sabbath or something.
Yeah,
like,
something like that.
But unless you're trying to be like some John Bonham or something, then what are they thinking?
But the fact that they're actually writing that now, and then I was like, imagine the amount of roles I've been put forward for where they haven't written that, but that's already in their heads, you know, so you're wasting your time auditioning or whatever.
It's crazy. I mean, that makes zero sense to me at all.
But that's what happens when the marketing business world combines with the creative world, you know. You have analytic thinkers where they're like, this is what we think a metal drummer looks like this, and you have the people who actually know what's going on with the real world, and that's why 90% of commercials you cringe at, because you're like, oh my fucking god.
Yeah, I know. I don't watch huge amounts of TV, and I certainly don't pay attention to adverts. But more so if I'm on the driving and listening to radios, like you hear advert dialogue, and you think, who the fuck is writing this shit?
Yeah, who talks like that?
You know? Yeah, who talks like this? These jokes aren't funny. What you're doing is making me. I would definitely not use this company because your adverts.
Because I don't relate to you in one little bit, you know.
Because I hate you. I hate everything you stand for in your advert. So well done there. I mean,
exactly.
I mean, before we get on to your sort of your feature idea and the crowdfunding and all that sort of stuff, because that's kind of how I sort of came across you a few days ago, and it certainly looks really cool. I want to talk about that. Your tattoos, just I'm interested. I mean, how long was the sort of process was it from getting your first? I mean, I've got a couple of tattoos myself, not like facial or neck or anything. At what point? Because I know it's kind of like when you get one tattoo, then like there's never like you're never done. It's kind of you're always getting other ideas and all that sort of stuff. At what point did you go, right, okay, I've got my arms, shoulders, back, whatever, I'm going to go for the neck, I'm going to go for that? And like, what was was there like a transitional period where like you had one and people got used to that and like you get more? Or
yeah, I mean, it's something like I've talked about a lot over the years, and it was never a conscious decision that I'm going to be covered in tattoos. You can ask my mother. I've been fascinated with tattoos since I was like 4 or 5. I don't know why. Like if I saw like a sailor tattoo, or like Iron Maiden were my favorite band growing up, and they had like shitty tattoos, and I was always drawing them on my arms, and so just always fascinated. But I was just always that creative side of everything that I did, whether it was music or but yeah, I mean, I got my first piercing when I was like 14. I got my first tattoo when I was 17. I probably would have got it earlier if I had gotten away with it, you know. And yeah, just I never set out to be like, I'm going to be fully tattooed. So a lot of my early ones were my martial arts, jiu-jitsu, so the crest and stuff like that. And then it was all like music related. But I definitely came from the punk rock side of it, where I like the rebelliousness of it. It's completely gone the opposite now, where it's completely mainstream. You're cooler if you don't have a tattoo now.
I know, right? The first tattoo I got a flyer from like a punk gig I went to in London somewhere, and this was from the tattoo shop was in like near Waterloo Station. So from down in Surrey, like hour train journey into there, because that was like there wasn't any tattoo shops anywhere near me, you know. So literally I had to travel an hour into London to go and get a tattoo. And it's like other than older people I knew that had some, like I was certainly the first of like my friend or anyone my age group that got a tattoo. And it was kind of rebellious. It was lots of people didn't get it. Certainly a lot of girls didn't have it. I'm talking like mid to late 90s, you know. And over the years, there's like all these tattoo shops have popped up everywhere, and most of them not being great, to be honest. And you're right. It's like you see like models with lots of tattoos and stuff, like just modeling just like clothes that you get in like I don't know, Tesco's or like Primark and stuff. And it's just like there's nothing alternative about you. There's nothing like you're not like a punk, not mint metal, whatever. But it's weird. It's just like, oh, they look really cool because they've got tattoos, and they'll model a white t-shirt or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of done a bit of a 360. You know, the people that would have been, you know, slagging you off for having tattoos, it's now the cool thing to get the tattoos and stuff. But I mean, yeah, like I, you know, started getting the tattoos and stuff like that. And then I moved to California. I was playing drums for 2 punk bands out there. And I did an apprenticeship in piercing. So I've been a piercer for the last 18 years. And I've owned 8 tattoo and piercing shops, you know. So I've seen the trends come and go. And obviously it's great for business the way it is now and stuff like that. But yeah, for myself, like it was very much, I never asked anyone's opinion. As cliched as it sounds, I did it for myself. I never did it for anyone else's approval. If I wanted something, I would just go and get it. I was I suppose a bit reckless with it, but I just, if I wanted something or if I said I was going to do it, I never didn't do it, you know. I was just, but like as regards, you know, the face and stuff like that, it's such a massive change of your life, that you have to deal with the consequences because human beings judge aesthetically. It's in our human nature. Some people know how to keep their mouth shut, others don't, you know, and it changes your life. And it's I mean, the contradiction of me is anybody that sees people who are heavily tattooed just have, again, just a generalization that they're attention seeking or they do. I fucking hate the attention. I avoid human contact as much as possible. You know, and you have to get used to people staring and comments and stuff like that. And I'm kind of used to it now. But when I go out with my friends and family, they're like, how are you dealing with this? You know, like I hate the attention that it brings. And everyone's like, well, why the fuck do you get your face tattooed? And it's like, that's the human condition. You know, that's how conditioned we are. Why did you do it if you think that other people are going to be expressing their opinions? Because I fucking wanted to do it, you know. I didn't do it for I'm not going to not do something because they're not going to be happy with it, you know. So but yeah, it is a massive commitment. And I remember when I got the star under my eye, which side is it? This side. That was my first face tattoo. And I knew that like my dad didn't like the tattoos. My mom was cool about them. And he never said anything. But when I came home with that under my eye, he fucking freaked out because he just thought, that's it. You're never going to get a job. You're never going to do it. But it kind of was my commitment that I was going to, at the time, I was going to be a punk rock drummer, and I was going to work in the tattoo industry. That was my commitment to it, you know. So, but yeah, I suppose that's how it went. And then, I mean, it does help with the acting stuff that I do get the, you know, 5% of the roles that other people aren't going to get, but it does rule me out for 95%, you know. So
but you could argue you were never going to get them anyway because they had someone else in the mind all along, or whatever it is. But again, it's I suppose in a way it's symbolic of what acting is, perhaps, which is kind of like you've got to have your own USP. You know, you've got to have like why are you different from the other 1,000 people who want your role in this film? You know, what made Harrison Ford become Han Solo or like Indiana Jones versus, I don't know, Burt Reynolds or some other people. It's like that thing that makes you is ultimately what would make you, say, successful or a star or like get the job in the first place. And like, yeah, if you're completely plain and vanilla and everything else, then it's like, well, are you going to appeal to anyone? You know, like, are you going to get cast for anyone?
And I agree, but the flip side of the coin is that I've had so many instances in my life where the casting director loves you, the producer loves you, the director loves you. They're like, yeah, we want something fucking different in our film, or look, and, you know, fuck the rules and all that. And then it'll go to the executive producer, the money man, and they be like, no, that's not safe. Let's go with vanilla. That's safe.
Yeah.
But that's their proven track record. You know, that's just playing devil's advocate, but that has happened quite a few times where you get so far and they'll come back to you and say, listen, we got you this far with it, but at the end of the day, they just weren't willing to take the risk, you know. So
That's the problem when you have people like Disney making films, you know.
But true.
So let's talk about your feature idea and how that started and where you're at with that, and how anyone might be able to sort of help you guys in terms of funding.
That's the one I kind of been building up to, and I was saving this for the feature film because it's not my biography, but it is based on many punk bands and stuff that I drummed with over the years, but one in particular that I drummed with for 8 years, and we were never famous, we were infamous. So it's loosely based on that. And I mean, the tagline in my early pitch meetings were the name of the film is Dublin Crust. So it's like Dublin Crust is like Trainspotting meets The Commitments and has an illegitimate love child with the full Monty. That's kind of like the vibe of the film. So it's definitely in the black comedy world. It is a drama based on a punk band, and a lot of the stuff that happens in it, even if you wouldn't believe it, actually did happen, you know. So it's a very personal, and they always say, you know, write about what you know and what's personal to you. And that, like, the lockdown was great I'd been, you know, getting the draft of it together, but the lockdown really gave me the time to actually sit down and write the script properly. But it was a very easy flowing script, you know. Before I knew it, there was, you know, 200 pages there, and then you start the editing process down to it. But yeah, it's a really personal story, and it's kind of like in the Shane Meadows film world, you know, where it's kind of This Is England and that kind of vibe, and it's quite working class. But I always write my films, and this one in particular, of what I like to see in a film, you know. I like to see layered films. I like a film that if you watch it again, when you know the ending of something, you go back, you're like, oh, that's why he fucking did it. Where it's very subtly kind of placed and kind of layered. So there's definitely a lot of that in this. And then, so basically finished the script, and I entered it into the Dublin International Scriptwriting Festival, and it won and got accepted into that, which the prize for that was getting to pitch it to 5 of the biggest production companies in Ireland. So I got to pitch the movie to them, and that was amazing. And that was kind of getting the whole ball rolling as to where we are now. So we've been in pre-production for over a year now. We are filming in March, so it's getting close. But you know yourself, from the indie film world, there's so many juggling balls, there's so much happening. And I mean, obviously the big elephant in the room is the fundraising side of things.
It's and again, so you did Indiegogo campaign. That's now expired, that's finished, or is that still?
So that was round 1. And that was something that I was really reluctant to do, because I hate begging strangers for money, or you know, or the added, like, you know, getting into other people's heads going, oh well, he wants to make a film, why the fuck should I pay for it? You know. So like, I really went above and beyond as regards the perks that we offered on it, you know, to try and incentivize people into, you know, that they got something in return for it. My wife is also a tattoo artist, so she's doing like a tattoo day where, you know, the tattoos are 40 quid from a book of Flash, and all that money went to, you know, into the Indiegogo thing.
That's a brilliant idea, you know?
Yeah. And then one thing that kicked us in the ass, so that's like she's doing 2 days of that, and we raised some money through that. But we also did a tattoo raffle where you bought a ticket for €5, and they all went in, and you get like a full day's tattooing, a hotel stay, and dinner. So that was the whole thing. And we sold like loads of raffle tickets. And when that phase of the campaign finished with Indiegogo, we got an email from them saying we reached the terms and conditions. You're not allowed to hold a raffle.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that was a big fucking learning curve on us to read the small print, you know. So we had to refund everyone that money.
Oh shit.
and they wouldn't release the funds unless we did that, and we had to like email everybody that had donated on the Indiegogo thing to let them know that this had occurred. So that was just like an absolute fucking stress. So it brought our money down. And then I was saying to you before this, like, you know, I do have a good social media following. I've over 100,000 people overall. So I was kind of quietly confident that we would, you know, hit our target or do well. And it just really was a lesson that as much as people, you know, say they support you and it's amazing you're making a film, and when it comes down to it, there wasn't a lot of people putting their money where their mouth is, we say, you know, which is disappointing.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, hey, it's easy to follow people these days, isn't it? But getting people to repost stuff is hard. But to actually give you 10 quid or something is oftentimes impossible, you know. Do you have like a plan? Are you gonna try to, I mean, I said like March is not that far away. Are you hoping that there's a couple of people that might be in the wings to kind of help you out to get you where you need to go? Are you going to try to do another one? Again, but it sounds like you don't really want to go down the crowdfunder thing again.
So we do. Like, I mean, I sent 134 emails last week. So you know, so like we have a private investor on board. He hasn't committed to a figure yet, so we're still trying to nail that down. We have applications into the governing bodies, you know, the arts councils and stuff like that. We got rejected for 2 already, and we have 3 other applications in. There's like a bursary. I don't know. Do you guys have a credit union over there? No, it's like.
I know what it is, but as far as I'm aware, we don't. I mean, I understand the concept, but
it's kind of like a community-run bank, basically. But they have a bursary, so we have an application in with them. They had their meeting on Thursday. We have an executive producer on board for the post-production phase that's willing to come in on that side of things. I've been hitting up as many businesses that I have made connections with, you know, over the years. Now they've been amazing as regards locations and helping us with stuff, and just a lot of them aren't in a position to offer actual money, you know. Times are tough for everybody. I understand it, you know. And we have so many different budgets, and like we're signed up to, like, you know, angel investor sites, and, you know, we're just trying everything to think outside the box, because if you're waiting on the governing body grants to come through, you may never make a film, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the icing on the cake, and if that comes, that's great. But that's not your business plan, you know. You can't have that as in that's how we get our funding. It's so frustrating. I mean, just from the sort of pitch video and the sort of like the trailer. I mean, how did you go about making the trailer? Because the trailer is really good.
Thanks, man. Yeah, like, I mean, it's, again, like I said earlier, it's you can send 100 emails, but you need to show them, you know, what's your concept. So that trailer was shot in one day in one location, even though if you look at the trailer, there's about 7 different setups, and the amount of cheating that went on in that, you know, even the apartment scene that was in the warehouse where the band practice scene was.
Right.
My wife likes to stress it.
Because it literally looks like you've made the trailer from the film footage and you've edited it. You know, cool. It's that good. You know, I've seen quite a few sort of pitch videos, and even content of short films, and it's like, I was like, well, because I was confused when I first saw it. I was like, what? So they have made it already? Because then I kind of realized, okay, maybe they haven't. But that's, I mean, anyone watching it, click on the link, and I will put the link in when we post this and everything else. It's like, if that's what you can do in a day, then I'm sure what you could get done in a full time would be amazing.
The thing that's kind of keeping us going in the dark days, you know, if we can get that amount of content done in one day.
And so is it still live, as in if anyone's watching this, you never know, they wanted to give you, send you some money, or at least share it, is it worth people sharing that if we provide the link?
Yeah, 100%. And we just for now, we just set up a PayPal donate things where if anyone donates, the same perks are there for Indiegogo just for now. And we may do a second round in the Indiegogo phase, but I can send it on to you anyway, the links. So
sure, yeah, no, that'd be great.
But yeah, I mean, I was in an indie film over 2 years ago, and I only went to the premiere in December, and they basically micro budgeted. I actually know how much they made it for. I'm not going to say how much they made it for, but it was a low amount. And I was talking to the producer, he's the star in it as well, and he's also going to be in Dublin Crust. But he, even himself, even though he was a producer, he was skeptical in the money, and I was skeptical going to the premiere, just knowing how guerrilla style it was shot. And I went to it, and it fucking blew me away. It's like such a good film and I'd be quite critical quietly to myself as a filmmaker, but it was absolutely amazing. So I walked out of that going, okay, if they can make that for that quality, for that amount of money, we can make this. And sometimes, people get too obsessed about the budget. And I've been on so many productions where they have had the money and they fucking squander it on the stupidest stuff. And when you come from a guerrilla indie filmmaking style and you see what they're wasting their money on, you're like, there's no need for that budget. You could make it on this, But then if you turn around to somebody and you say, oh, well, I made my feature film for 8 grand, 10 grand, they're like, well, that's going to be shit. It's just that kind of, but you could tell them it was 100 grand and they think, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, exactly. And it really doesn't translate like that.
Yeah. If you know what you're doing and there's brand stuff,
Absolutely. Do you want to, I'll put the links up. Do you want to mention just how people can follow you on social media? What's the easiest way to get in contact with you if someone's watching this and like, I've got a spare 10 grand, I want to throw you guys?
That'd be great.
Tell me as well. But
yeah. So any social media is Baz Black. You find me on any of the Instagram or any of those ones. And then Sure Look Productions as a website or email, you can get us on that if it's anything to do with the production side of things. And then just Dublin Crust, like we're on Instagram or any of those, you can follow any of them. But anything would be appreciated. And that's even with the Indiegogo. It wasn't like, I know not everybody's in a position to offer money. I was like, just at least share it.
Yeah.
Even getting people to share it,
That is like 60% of the battle is just, if you can't give a quid, then repost it. Repost it. Because if everyone, if everyone could repost it to 10 people, then that's a lot of people getting seen. I'll let you go because we've been talking a long time, but that's certainly been my experience of doing crowdfunders. Is I naively, when I did my first one, thinking, right, well, I've got 200 and something followers on Facebook. Oh, well, all of those will at least share it, and in reality, you get maybe 10 people.
Do it. Yeah.
Even you tell them 3-4 times. Oh yeah, I'll do it, and they never do. It's kind of like, well, okay, they just hate me. But you know what I mean? It's like it's difficult. So
it's really, really hard, and just on the investor side, you just really need to get your business brain on, and sometimes again in the creative artists, we get too bogged down in the art of the film, and we're pitching the film to them, and they just want to know about the numbers. They don't give a shit what the film is. They either believe in you or they don't, So but we'll get there one way or another.
I believe you will. I want to keep in contact because I would love to find out how you guys get on and do it, and speak to you again, either in the process when you're doing it or in the finished product or whatever. I'm sure we will talk about it again because it's, from what I know of it, it's a really cool little film, big film, and your insights and your experience is really cool, and it's really unique, and I've enjoyed having a chat with you.
So I appreciate it, and this is how indie filmmakers help each other and get the word out.
Absolutely.
You know, I can't stand any of the bitchiness or the hierarchy. You know, it's like we're all here to help each other. So anything we can do to help.
Absolutely. No, Baz, thank you very much for your time this evening. And yeah, I will put all the links up in your social media. And anyone listening to this, please go and do whatever you can.
Cool.
But
Thanks,
no, thank you very much.
Nice one.